aka Grimoire. This video is going to be discussing racism and its spiritual effects in our evolution. Because I think in this era, there's a lot of racism and a lot of issues centered around racism affecting everybody. And I think from a physical perspective, you know, a material perspective, an earthy perspective, it's obviously it's gross and it's nasty and it's hate-filled. But have you noticed from a spiritual perspective, and that's what this video is going to be touching on, it's going to be touching racism on a spiritual perspective. Have you noticed racism? It's like a virus, because this hate and fear affects other people of other races, and reverse racism included. You know, it affects people. Then the people affected are upset and they're feeling some kind of way, and then they affect other people. And so hate is infectious. Fear is infectious. I'm going to go into detail about that. For example, what is racism? I'll wait. You know, you think about it. To you, what does racism mean to you? That's important. Does it have a spiritual effect? Of course it does. It wouldn't be affecting the world, because racism is not just specific to the United States. There's racism in Australia, there's racism in Mexico, there's racism in South America, there's racism in Europe, there's everywhere. Racism is everywhere. It's a pandemic. It's not just specific to the United States. What do these words have in common? Xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, femophobia, gynophobia, anything with the suffix of phobia in it. Well, xenophobia, a fear and hatred of other of people from other countries, other races. Homophobia, the fear of homosexuality, the fear and hatred of homosexuality. Islamophobia, the fear and hatred of those who practice Islam. Here's the thing too, Islamophobia is when you're hating somebody of the religion of Islam. Islam is a religion, it's not a people. Just throwing that out there. Femophobia, it's the hatred and fear of effeminate nature in men. It can be seen as also a fear and hatred of women, but that would fall into the category of gynophobia. But notice the whole theme there is fear and hatred. Fear and hatred in of themselves are highly toxic emotions, highly toxic thoughts and emotions. Because whenever you feel something, you have a psychological association with it, as well as an emotional association with it. Fear and hate are highly toxic, like I said. Not just, I have my notes, for the people that, not just for the people that are feeling those things, but for the rest of the world, because when they feel and they think and they have the psychological associations and the emotional associations of fear and hate, that infects the world around you and infects other people around you. Why? Why should what you feel, like why should fear and hatred affect other people? Fear and hate have psychological and emotional associations and negative effects for the person harboring these thoughts, as well as for the people they harbor these thoughts for. You're affecting people with what you're feeling and what you're thinking, you know? And because energy travels, thought has energy, emotions have energy, also our actions. are the manifestations of our thoughts and our emotions in the physical world. How? That's a fair question. Fear and hate have energy that can affect us and others spiritually and physically. Fear and hate, which is racism, can spread and infect others like a virus, making others feel fear and hate, which allows it to spread and perpetuate itself. And that's what's going on. That's the whole reason why it's a pandemic. To use the word pandemic suggests that it's spreading. It's contagious. Racism is contagious. And it has a spiritual energy to it, a negative energy to it that erodes the world around us. Okay, it affects us. And that's what I want to tackle here. Let's take a closer look at the spiritual composition of racism. There's a spiritual component to it. Racism is composed of the following spiritual energies. Psychokinetic energy. Remember from my last video when I told you guys psychokinetic energy is the psychological associations and emotional associations attributed to our experiences and our feelings and our emotions. All that creates psychokinetic energy. It creates psychokinetic energy that can affect the physical world. So racism has a component of psychokinetic energy, but the other component is chaos energy. This is deep. Chaos energy, with chaos energy, it's the idea, or it's basically everything is allowed. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I believe Aleister Crowley said that. Well, that is the hallmark of chaos energy. In chaos energy, or chaos magic, or whatever, everything is permitted, and the destruction, everything is permitted, even the destruction of that which promotes diversity and opposes the one universal law. The one universal law is all is one. We are all one. There is, I believe, 7.5 billion or 8 billion people on the planet now, as of 2018, I believe. Well, each one of those individual souls creates one complete being. As a species, we may be fragmented, but on a spiritual sense, we are all actually one collective being. That's the universal rule of all is one. Chaos energy opposes that principle, that universal principle. Chaos energy is basically, I can do what I want. And if that means I have to hurt you, I'm going to do it with a song in my heart. That chaos energy is that. Chaos energy promotes ideas of supremacy and opposes anything that rivals that. Supremacy is very much based in fear, resulting in hate, which is used to hide the fear of losing supremacy. I mean, let's be real. If for some races, they believe that they call themselves supremacists. Well, let's analyze that. Supreme over what? The planet? No, you're not. Because if you were actually supreme over this planet, you would be there and nothing else would be in existence. You would be supreme. There's no such supremacy is an illusion. Supremacy is a delusion. It doesn't exist. And chaos energy promotes that delusion. You know, chaos energy is anti-evolution. It's anti-spiritual evolution. And that's corruption. You cannot spiritually evolve if you are spiritually corrupted by fear and hate. There's no spiritual evolution to be had. The combination of psychokinetic energy and chaos energy inherent in racism And in all its various incarnations, be it passive racism, passive aggressive racism, or aggressive, out and out, full-blown racism, results in negative manifestations such as sociopathy and psychopathy. What racists have in common is that their paradigms, their way of thinking and feeling, is very much like a psychopath or a sociopath. Psychopathy, this is from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. A sociopath and a psychopath, mental health practitioners shy away from using terms like sociopath and psychopath. They'll say a behavioral disorder, and they'll be a bit more clinical. Psychopathy, sometimes considered synonymous with sociopathy, is traditionally defined as a personality disorder characterized by persistent antisocial behavior. Being a racist, you're antisocial because you ain't gonna be socializing with everybody. Impaired empathy, you don't care about the emotions of other races whom you affect with your racist ideas and actions or emotions. You don't care if somebody, for example, a racist person won't care about somebody else they're racist towards. They won't feel. They will have no compassion and no remorse for their actions against those people. And they're uninhibited about sharing that. You know, because misery loves company. You don't want to be the only one in your little hate-filled square. You want to add other people's there so you're less alone. Karma. Racism brings tremendous karmic repercussions because you're working against the one universal law, which is all is one. Then comes the dark night of the soul. Most racists will be experiencing the dark night of the soul perpetually. And no matter if they're rich, wealthy, or whatever, they're going to be empty inside. There's just this emptiness that nothing can fill. It's kind of like that supremacy ideology where I have to conquer. I'm a conqueror. I can conquer all this. I conquer. And then what? You conquer all this, and then what? Are you fulfilled? Are you happy? It's hard to be happy when you're empty inside because nothing can fill it. And that leads to corruption, and that corrupts anything. You can't love unconditionally. Your love, if you're a racist, you can't love unconditionally because you have conditions to who you love, who you feel for, you know. So unconditional love is barred to you. You cannot access that. And so that leads to corruption in a sense that anything that you love conditionally, well, those conditions by default will destroy anything that you'd want to love, anything that you want to create, because you have conditions. So it's not real. That's like, I love you, but you have to be this color. Or I love you, but you have to be this sexuality. I care for you, but you have to be... That's not love. That's an agreement. That's a condition you're placing on something universal. Love is universal. Compassion is universal. Caring, emotions, that's all universal. And you bar yourself from that when you're a racist because you're not universal. You are very exclusionary with your love, with your emotions, which is a hallmark of a sociopath. A sociopath, they can feel a little bit. It's a psychopath that has no conscience and that cannot feel. So they fake it, but they can't feel. A sociopath can feel, they just don't care. He goes, oh, I feel bad for him, but better you than me. Sorry. That's basically it. So that leads to corruption. If a racist loves somebody, that love is going to wither, because love cannot exist in a heart that is filled with hate. You'll be at odds, and so you will self-sabotage. You will sabotage whatever is pure in your life because your emotions are not pure. They're tainted and corrupted by hate. Pain. This leads to pain. You know, of course it's going to be painful, you know, and loss. anything pure, anything beautiful, anything of the light, anything that just is a spiritual light will wither. It cannot stay. So there's going to be a lot of loss for those who are racist, because you cannot spiritually evolve when you're racist. There's no way you can. You are anti the universal law, which is all is one. Racism is a self-perpetuating curse that prevents spiritual evolution and cuts off the racists from their higher self. It is the lack of empathy or compassion for others and the inability or refusal to accept others as equals. All is one. When you look at other people of other races and whatnot, you see that you're a part of them and they are a part of you. A racist can't do that. They're too busy saying, I'm the important, I'm the one race, I am important, I am superior. Let's analyze superiority. Superiority is part of supremacy. You have to be superior. Well, in order for you to be superior, you have to see somebody else as inferior. Well, if you see somebody else as inferior, then you're not really adhering to the all is one rule. And that's a universal rule. Chaos energy is anti-order, anti-universal law, anti-everything. Because it's based in supremacy. Supremacy is an illusion, it's a delusion. It doesn't exist. For example, something that is supreme is the universe itself, because it's all encompassing. Something that's supreme is yeah, you can't go further than the universe or like even ideas of God. Everybody has their own idea of God, except the atheist, which is fine. No shade. I'm just saying, in terms of using the God principle, that would be supreme. But God is inclusive. It's man that says, God hates gays, or God hates blacks, or God hates this and this. Well, that's man speaking for God. The funny thing about God is God doesn't have a religion. Man does. You know? Spiritual evolution is what all humanity as a species incarnates on Earth to do. We reincarnate, we come onto Earth to spiritually evolve. Spiritual evolution is impossible if there's hate and there's fear, because hate and fear promotes chaos energy. The psychokinetic energy inherent in racism hurts the very world that you're a part of, and it hurts you too, and it corrupts you, and you become that virus that ends up corrupting infecting other people, and then those people infect other people, and that, see how it goes? It's a chain reaction. It's like racism and racists are that free radical that's breaking down this spiritual evolutionary body that is humanity as a species. So what I share with you my thoughts on what racism is, because right now people really need to know that racism has spiritual implications in our spiritual evolution. We need to evolve, and racism is making that much harder. So for us, victims of racism, don't let it in. Don't let it win. Don't let it embitter you. Don't let it poison you. Our ancestors went through this. We will survive this. And we will continue to survive, because that's who we are. We're survivors. Anybody can be a conqueror. But true strength is in surviving, thriving, getting to the future, teaching, loving, compassion, strength, and maintaining these higher qualities during adversity. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not Gandhi. fight adversity, fight racism. Yes, because as much as we are spiritual beings, we're on the physical right now. But we can walk two roads. We can walk the red road of physicality and the blue road of spirituality. We need to fight against racism, but without allowing that infection to infect us, to make us cynical, to make us bitter, to make us angry, hateful, because then we become that which infected us and we're infecting other people. We can't win that way. Rising above something doesn't mean ignoring something. You can't ignore an infection because it'll get worse. You have to stop it in its tracks. But how you choose to do that will benefit not only you, but the future. And it is a constant struggle against that negativity, against that chaos energy. Remember the natural law, we are all one. That is how you fight, and that is how you win. Knowing what it is, understanding it, encountering it whenever possible. I hope this information finds you well. And I just want to bring light to dark places, and I think this spiritual light that I just gave you needed to be said from a spiritual perspective, because we know in history the physical perspective, the physical manifestation of racism. But let's understand the spiritual implications of racism and how to counter it. The one law, we are all one. And countering that by naming the demon, naming this chaos energy. Call it out when you see it. And survive, endure, and fight. But fight intelligently, because you matter. And you don't want to be infected by the hate and fear of others that are spiritually unevolved. Racism is a hallmark of the spiritually unevolved. Don't let them win. And don't sacrifice your evolution in the process, in the fight against racism. All right, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I hope this information finds you well, bringing light to dark places. More videos to come. Let's stay strong, and remember, all is one. All right.